Okay, so the topic I'm going to go through today, and it's again, I kind of mentioned it earlier, it's probably something we overlook too often, specifically with nutrition. Um, and it's more about, I think, the quality and then the densities. So there's nutrient density is very important. And that concept many times is negated or kind of kicked to the side, but there's a lot of validity with nutrient density, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So we're going to talk about strategies of low calories, high protein, where nutrient density will help obviously minimize the hunger response or control the hunger response while getting the nutrients you need, not only for energy sources, but also to make sure that we're having adaptation to muscle tissue because that's so important. So I will go through some concepts and simple strategies for you guys. And again, if you have questions, never hesitate. So some of the core principles, and this again, I drive a lot of this back to performance, fat loss, how you feel, how you recover. So again, most people think it just fat loss is all associated with eating less food. Well, we have to be under calories in some format. I kind of talked about that, and I will always hit on that. That doesn't necessarily mean eating less food. It depends on the density of food, what you're consuming, because nowadays um, we can consume a lot of calories in one setting. Just depends on how the food is prepared, and that's where we kind of get in a little bit of trouble because it's so much harder to burn the excess calories off. So really, when you look at fat loss and overall health and energy, it's really eating the right foods in some of the right structure to help with maintaining energy, setting yourself up for fat loss, and making sure our insulin is more stable. So a lot of times, and you guys heard me touch on this, if we go into restriction too hard, we go into starvation component. Our starvation component kicks in. A lot of times we can only tolerate that for so long. It's a survival mechanism. And then I'm going to give you some strategies where, hey, we can keep those calories and feel satisfied because we're going after more dense and better quality food. So it's more food selection. You don't need necessarily less, and you can go after better quality and types of foods that are going to give you the nutrients and the things you need to be successful in your journey. So, what is nutrient density? Uh, how many nutrients you get per calorie consumed? So, again, what has happened with some of the foods is they've pulled the quality and they've added other things to make it taste better, and we can go in a whole nother direction with the addiction properties of some of the foods that are out there in the market, which some of them I would even consider not labeled as a food product in many formats. But again, that's a whole nother topic of presentation. Uh, so we want to look at foods that are high nutrient density foods that are going to get more bang for your buck. And the foundational component is always going to be the protein sources, any type of lean protein. And then from there, we'll go into the vegetables, spinach, broccolis, peppers, things that are going to be higher in density, probably going to have higher fiber content and higher nutrient value. And then we can go after fruits, berries, apples, things of that nature. I know a lot of times we get the question, is a banana good for you? Because it's obviously the fructose and sugar content. That's not necessarily the problem. And many times we go after problems that's not the true problem. And it's just a matter of the marketing component and the things of that nature that get us confused. So now we look at the foods that are the density component that they suffer in the density. And a lot of times what happens when they start pulling out the density, they process and then they put other components, chemicals in, and it kind of pushes that calorie aspect. So processed snacks, sugar drinks, high fat processed meals. And a lot of times, obviously you'll see these more in the fast food market, fast, quick, convenient, and that's all over the place, and we've kind of pushed the society like that. There's been a pushback where getting access to better nutrient dense food in a better format or a quicker format has been obviously a demand from the market as well. So two meals can have the same calories, but completely different impact on hunger, energy, and fat loss. So that's always this concept's not always taught on the front side because we want you guys to start getting wins early, but this can be for longevity and for health purposes. Thinking about the density of food that you consume, your family consumes, I think it is going to be more and more important down the road as well. So, why is it going to matter, with your health journey? Um, it's really with the fiber protein, it's going to slow digestion, it's going to curb the hunger response, and it's going to stabilize your insulin. So you will have the sensation of being full longer. And many times it becomes very challenging to overeat these types of foods because you're not hungry. Now, processed foods that may be the same calorie base, you can come back and eat it multiple times, but because the hunger response kicks up. And that's a big reason why we overconsume in calories because we can trace that back to what are we eating. So again, you're going to hear me talk about blood sugar stabilization a lot because it's so important for setting yourself up for getting in fat oxidation, energy levels, and response recovery as well. So you're going to have less crashing, fewer cravings, and that's going to be a big win. And then micronutrient support, that helps with metabolism. We don't get into that a lot because again, down the totem pole, that's more a health response. There's ways to test that. Again, that's in blood work and it's a deeper level of blood work where you can peel back your micronutrient deficiencies and then obviously add supplementation to fill those gaps. But again, we can get you from point A to point B without really going down that rabbit hole. And then obviously vitamins and minerals are required for the fat loss process to help that process function at the level it should. And then hormone is going to be impacted as well. And it can be obviously improved with the quality of food consumed. So better leptin, insulin sensitivity, recovery. So fat loss isn't just a calories. It's going to be a combination of components. It's how your body responds to those calories, really. And that's a big deal because it can make it. Can you get from point A to point B? Of course. Can the quality of food accelerate your process? Yes. Can it slow your process? Yes. Uh, we've coached all types of clients over the years. And I remember, I think Erin actually coached uh, this gentleman way back when she was in a BNI business networking group. She just did nutritional coaching. He didn't come to our facility. And he ate 90% fast food, mostly McDonald's, and we were still able to get him to lose weight. So it can be done, but it's just not from a health standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, it's probably not the best route to go, not in long term. So again, you hear me talk about protein quite often. You'll hear me reiterate muscle as well. In this phase of life, I think the ability to increase your muscle tissue and maintain your muscle tissue is so important. It's one of those non-negotiables because it really helps both men and women, but it's going to impact women just as much. And we've kind of negated it over the years, specifically with the hormone response. And what we're seeing now is a lot of women being under-muscled, which kind of can impact the homeostasis of the hormonal structure. So the role of protein, again, I talk about this quite often, repairs damaged muscle tissue, which is a big deal, builds new muscle, which we want that, preserves lean mass during fat loss. Some of the amino acids and those things are there for to be utilized during that process. And then there's a thermal effect, burns more calories to digest. So it takes more energy, your own energy, to break down the muscle itself. So a lot of times what we see if somebody goes in restriction or they don't consume enough protein and they have, even though they're working out in stress, some individuals may start losing muscle. We don't want that. We want to set a foundation for stability, maintaining muscle, specifically when you're in a weight loss, fat loss phase, because Depending on how much you need to lose, you may tap into a little bit of lean tissue, but if we can stabilize that and lose minimal lean tissue in the process, that's going to be so important to once you get to your baseline because your metabolic process will be stable. And if we're able to stabilize that, we won't see a bounce back. Typically, what we see in bounce back individuals is they've lost weight and they've lost lean tissue and they haven't kept that foundational component. And then fat loss can be harder if you start losing lean tissue. You guys know this, and again, these are numbers. You guys may have more specific goals that you guys go after. I'm just going to give you ranges. So good protein targets for women. We try to get everybody up to about 100 grams. That's a good baseline. We can push higher than that. We can push higher than 130 if we really needed to. Most women are good within this range. With some of my guys, I may start it depending on their specific size. We'll start about at a range of 160 and push them up. My goal most days is to get up to that 200 gram mark myself. Do I always hit it? No, but if I'm in a like 170 plus, I'm doing really well. So and then what we want to do is we coach you in kind of spreading the protein intake out. So muscle protein synthesis happens in pushes. So every 3 to 5 hours, so if we get three solid meals in, we're looking at 30 grams per meal. We're doing really well. We're feeding the structure, we're feeding the metabolism how we need to feed it. And hopefully we're stabilizing the insulin as well as we're doing that. So that's kind of a general structure we set up. Now we do have some specifics where some people may still have snacks built in and things of that nature. That's going to be independent based upon person. So again, if we get you up to around that 30 grams per meal, we're doing really well. So, and your body doesn't store protein well. You have to feed it consistently. That's another component we don't touch on. But again, there's some hierarchies that, when we coach you, sometimes we don't talk about it because it's no need to educate you in that process. We already know why we're doing some of the components. So here's truly where we want to get you, where we're having a high protein, low calorie, or calories that match your needs without pushing you in excess. So what happens with this is you stay full, obviously, the sensation of hunger. And that's a big one because many times if we're having the hunger response, we and I'll back up a little bit. Having a little bit of hunger response is not a bad thing. It's how you can control the hunger response and making sure you don't overconsume. That's where we get in trouble. Um, so having a little bit of hunger is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's just the ability to manage that response. And again, when you have the higher protein, you preserve muscle. Again, it's critical during that fat loss phase because as you lose weight and as you lose fat, your metabolic percentage starts to drop. And the only way to counteract that drop is to have lean tissue. And then you burn more calories. Thermal effect of protein, it's going to be higher in carbs and fats. You reduce cravings. So you, again, stabilize blood sugar, fewer emotional eating episodes because you're stable, you're full. And you won't look to food as 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 a tool for filling a gap. Again, these are just I would say like I put them in tiers, and we could also put non-animal proteins in there. Actually, I should have thrown those in there as well. But if we put them in like a tier component, we look at tier one would be like chicken breast, turkey, whitefish, egg whites. Because what you're doing is you're getting bang for your buck, the amount of protein and then the amount of fat. And that's why I kind of put them in these categories. Tier two is more balanced, so whole eggs, lean beef, Greek yogurt. So what you're going to see is a little bit of slide over to the fat. And we get this question all the time, which I talk about here later, is hey, my fat is too high. It Anytime you increase your protein intake, your fat is going to push up. It's just it's fat got a bad rap in the 80s, and it's just now recovering because what they started doing is pulling all the fat out of products and putting chemicals and sugars in to replace it to make it taste good. And obviously we've flipped that on its side, and it was really some bad information. So we will always say, hey, as long as we don't have some major cholesterol issues, you're going to be fine. And many times the cholesterol issue is not associated with the food. Can it push your cholesterols in different patterns? Yes. A lot of times there's a genetic component associated with cholesterol. Um, when we look at tier three, protein powders, jerky, cottage cheese. So the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away is obviously convenience. And this is where it comes in. Okay, we need to make sure that we're getting, X amount of protein in. Sometimes you don't have the time to go, okay, I'm going to cook XYZ. And this is where the convenience and cost components start to come in play. And we have to make sure it fits within your budget and what your lifestyle is. And that's why it's like, yeah, in a perfect world, we're always eating high density protein, low cal. Well, that's almost impossible to do. Now, can you set yourself up for better success? 100%. Now, will it take a little bit of work? Yes, it takes a little bit of planning and preparation. So here's some concepts with the high volume eating concept. So volume is how much space food takes up in your stomach. And again, I know over the years coaching females myself, when I started pushing the protein up, that's the first thing they would say. I feel stuffed. Well, one of the main reasons it takes a little bit more to break down protein, right? So depending on what type of protein, but anytime you push protein up, the sensation of being full is going to be longer, and sometimes you get that feedback from clients. So here's some strategies for high volume foods, like vegetables, very low calories, very high volume, mainly because of the nutrient density and the fiber content. So those are so important, and an easy way to get high density foods in as well. Then we go fruits. It's going to be the fiber and the water, and then lean proteins. And why does it matter? Full stomach, brain signals satisfaction. When the brain signals satisfaction, you're not going to be craving or going after more food. You feel satisfied, you feel good, you feel energized, feel like you can go perform. So you can eat more food while staying in a calorie deficit as well if you go after some of these concepts. So the goal is to feel full while losing fat, not feeling awful, because there's always going to be a balance there where we want to make sure we're not too heavy under calorie. We're still able to perform and function at a high level. And this is one of the concepts that will help. So here's just a general framework for meal structure. Uh, uh, Protein's always going to be your anchor. What's your protein source, depending on individual, right? What's your source for fuel? And here's what I personally do, and we do a lot, is we push the vegetables in the carb slot because that's what a vegetable is. It's a carbohydrate. So a lot of our concepts and thinking is we have to have a single carb by itself, and that's not necessarily the case. That was really trained over the years, and when they flipped the food guide pyramid up and messed it all up, it made more sense to me, based upon how the body responds to the food consumed. So really, when you think about carbs, I would go after a high density vegetable, specifically maybe if you can some type of green, because you're going to get more nutrients out of it. And then fat is controlled portion. Problem we hit with fat more than anything is higher calories. So we just got to watch that because it can push your calorie up fairly quickly. Just like avocados are great, but those calorie components, and when you add some oils and things of that nature, it can really push your calories up as well. So that's more of a calorie issue than anything. So chicken, rice, broccoli, olive oil. Again, just making sure we don't uh, punch the calories with the fat. So And you can substitute the rice with cauliflower rice. We do that quite often. So that way it's pulling that component out and it simulates kind of the structure and how rice is, you know, more of how it not necessarily tastes, but how the texture is. So why does this work? It really helps with you guys balancing your blood sugar, fullness, sustainability, energy, performance, all those, and that's going to set you up for better success. So I'm going to go through a couple different strategies, and it's more about why we do some of these concepts to make sure we're feeding the muscle, again, that's important to make sure that we have that balance of caloric restriction, but right nutrient balance, so that way our muscles not being starved. So most people, and again, we're trying to change this. They would think carbs first, protein second, uh, when you're building a meal, and that was obviously a wrong concept. Now I will say carbs are cheaper, right? It's a cheaper source of energy consumption, but it may not get you what you desire. You really need to flip it. And they just did this with the food guide pyramid. Protein first, everything else comes second. But again, I would go protein. And if you can get a fibrous veggie second, it's going to be a win for you. Again, protein drives recovery, hunger control. And I kind of went through this concept earlier. Another strategy to really help with a couple different strategies with this: eat protein every 3 to 5 hours. Muscle protein synthesis is active when you do this. Prevents long gaps, muscle breakdown, because you're consistently feeding the muscle tissue. And again, you break it down. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. What's your protein source? Am I getting 30 grams per? So, and then we go into strategy three. Um, Muscle requires, obviously lifting, which we have a lot of you guys push through that progressive overload. There's a certain style of lifting that's going to stimulate because your body is really, really good at adaptation. Um, that's why a lot of people with programming and lifting, they'll stagnate because they don't understand the physiology that goes behind programming in general. Just manipulating different movement patterns, manipulating different reps and sets and rest schemes helps stimulate enough the lean tissue response to keep you and eventually will you plateau? Yeah, there's always going to be a break where from a genetic standpoint the strength level, unless you start pushing even higher, which again that's a whole nother aspect. But we want to get you lifting. Obviously, we want to fuel that protein and keep that metabolism up. So no reason to build or make no stimulus. There's no reason to build or maintain muscle. Your body adapts to the demand. So you have to have intentional components to do that. And again, this is why I would jump over to GLP-1. This is why we're seeing a lot of people, if they don't get that protein and resistance training dialed in while utilizing that tool, that peptide, they get into a lot of trouble because they cause too much metabolic disruption. They lose their lean tissue, and that's a big deal. It's too hard to put back on. And then strategy four, this is you may hear this concept after training, obviously after lifting. Do you have to necessarily have to have a shake and a carb? No. Um, is it is it a strategy? Yes. We personally, what we try to do, Aaron and I, is we typically are not 100% fasting because I do a electrolyte drink or a amino acid drink during my lift, so it has calories in it. So I'm truly not at 100% fasting, but we typically have our breakfast as our first meal after we lift, and that fills this gap right here. So it has what we do is a heavy protein and a little bit of carb because the carbs are going to help with replenishing glycogen, which muscle contraction, your body uses a lot of glycogen carbohydrates for muscle contraction. That's why the concept's kind of like this post workout. But you can choose what works for you. It doesn't this strategy is not high on the marker point for moving the needle forward. it just can help. So example would be, protein shake plus fruit, chicken and rice, because you're getting that carb component. So you're filling the refueling the glycogen that you use during the workout. Again, muscles built during recovery. Well, it's kind of built during workout. You have to have the intensity, right? I probably should change that statement a little bit. But recovery is so important. Um, Poor recovery is going to lead to increased hunger, reduced performance, slower fat loss. Obviously, this is where stress and sleep come into play. These things are so important because resistance training is another stress on the body. So we have plenty of stress, but we just have to manage the stress that's um, not going to be. I mean, we have to manage the stress that's not going to move us forward, right? So being able to sleep better, if you can get that dialed in, it's going to help in managing your central nervous system. Diaphragmatic breathing, and understanding the fight or flight response. And the better you get dialed in with your central nervous system, the better you can manage stress responses. And here's some common mistakes we see. Eating healthy, right? And it could be, but it's low protein. Again, that's going to start affecting your metabolic response. Drinking calories, we just got to watch that 'cause that can add up fairly quickly. Coffee, drinks, shakes. We just got to watch our shakes, even though it has an X amount of protein, we can add a lot of calories to that really quick, and that could start pushing us over our threshold. Another thing with with shakes, I use them; they're great. You just won't get the sensation of being full as long because it's already in a liquid form, right? So if you actually eat a food more fibrous, takes longer to break down, sensation of being hungry is going to be stabilized. A shake, you will notice this. You will get hungry faster if you just use a shake. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but I'm just telling you that's what happens if you use a shake in comparison to eating regular food. Um, Overusing fats, again, oils, dressings, it will just push our calories up really quick. We just got to watch that. Specifically if you don't have control of preparation, and that's where, some of the restaurants you go to, it's like, whoa, that was that many calories. Well, they added all the other stuff in it that you're not accustomed to having. So it can push your calorie threshold really high. And then the cycle of heavy restriction and then overeating we see as well. So skipping meals for a long period of time. So ideally, we wanted to use this concept, calorie control without starvation, increase food volume, not calories. This is where it becomes, hey, let's add veggies instead of cutting meals, swap high fat foods for leaner proteins. Again, if that's a calorie ratio as well, making sure you're staying in the guardrails or where you need to be personally with your calorie consumption. And these are just examples. You guys have more specifics based upon your individual needs. You know, 13 to 1500 calories. So breakfast, eggs, oats. We do some toast with our eggs. Uh, Lunch, chicken, rice, veggies. Again, easy concept to kick out is push the rice out and just go veggies, and it starts adding up if you can do that. It's just a matter of finding what fits your palate as well. Again, dinner, fish, potatoes, greens. Again, if you don't necessarily need potatoes, you can kick those out and save a lot of calories. Again, not saying you have to, but those are just examples. And the examples I use quite often. Um, so same foods, different portions. Uh, you know, when we go over into processed foods, we can have the same portion size as a non-processed food, but the processed food could be, 500 calories more in comparison. Or what will happen is the processed food, your hunger response will kick up, just like I talked earlier. That's where, we don't realize this as a tool, but it's a simple tool if we can do it consistently, just to add really a lot of stability in your not only your blood sugar, your metabolism, your muscle, just by adding better quality, dense foods. So again, the big picture, looking at this, fat loss success comes from, again, consistency with protein. What does that look like for you? hey, can we start working on 'cause these are kind of things. Hey, we're going to teach you protein first, and then we'll start addressing some of the other components if we're not seeing the needle move forward. Like I said earlier, we can get you from point A to point B if we follow some of these concepts without, okay, hey, does everything have to be nutrient dense? Not necessarily, but it can be a strategy to help you. So protein consistency, nutrient density, meal structure, and then this wash, rinse, repeat. I know it can be boring sometimes, but it works. And it's just really finding the structure that fits you. And again, if we're 80, 85%, we're going to be good enough to move the needle. And a lot of times we think we have to be perfect. Not necessarily, because there's the data points that we collect many times are off anyways. What I'm saying there is when we're trying to track all the food, it's hard to track 100% consistency. Again, unless you scale it and weigh it and all that fun stuff that's not fun. But that is what it is. So we don't teach you random diets. We teach you structure and educational components based upon science. You know, we got to get you in a little bit of restriction in some format that works for you. So we try to take all the guesswork out of it. Again, simplify the process, set you up for success and long-term success. Because once you get the weight off, we want to make sure that that lean tissue is intact. That way, your metabolic process is not impacted. Because again, as you lose weight, your metabolism, not your metabolism, your body's caloric expenditure changes because you're not carrying the excess weight. It's like, carrying a backpack on you. It's 10 pounds of fat. Well, you're burning more energy. You lose that 10 pounds, your body is going to require less energy. The only way to combat that is lean tissue, maintaining that lean tissue. Because when you get to your goal percentages or weight, your metabolic process may be lower than what it was, but as long as we're keeping that lean tissue, it will function and you'll be able to stabilize it. Because where people get in trouble again, they'll have a bounce back effect, and their calories they'll push it back up to what they used to be, and that's over consuming because their body's not burning as many calories. They just don't know it. That's why it's so important to monitor your lean tissue and understand where you're at from that standpoint, because that's one of the mechanisms that really helps. So uh, now I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me. Does anybody have any specific questions? I know this concept is it's a common concept. We just don't use it very often. Again, it's based. I went back convenience and cost too. Obviously that can impact a lot because we start going after better quality foods. Nowadays, it can start getting a little bit more expensive in comparison to what our budget may have been. I know they've tried to do a better job with that, and depending on where you live, location and local uh, markets. I grew up, but both of us grew up. We live in inner city now, but both of us grew up in the country. I actually worked on multiple farms, and we were able to get a lot of those products when I was younger. Obviously from the local farmers. In the quality of product was probably better than some of the products we get now, and that whole component kind of flipped upside down. When I was younger, we didn't go out to eat fast food. It was too expensive. And it's kind of flipped. And now that fast food is cheaper and obviously the better quality food is has pushed up. And I think there's going to be a kind of a pushback based upon um, educational purposes and health, really. So any questions on concepts that went over or outside of this? I'm good. I'll go ahead and stop the share. No questions. Well, if you do, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense because I've been trying to do like I'm a person that needs to be like satiated with my meal that I eat.
Yeah.
So like if I don't have enough, then it's like I'm wanting more of something. And then that's when I go for things that I shouldn't probably like it's like my brain wants me to eat like other things that I really shouldn't be eating. So I've been trying to do like I've probably upped my protein since working with Aaron and really just try to focus on um just veggies like green beans and zucchini and peppers and mushrooms and onions and like making that with dinner. And then I usually my more dense carb would probably be sweet potatoes. Like I love
Yeah.
sweet potatoes. Um, but I also don't eat like a full sweet potato, right? Because
Yeah.
it's very you know, things in the ground are more higher calorie dense or more dense vegetables than things that are grown above ground.
Mhm.
So I definitely, and I have realized like I do feel full, but I try to eat where I don't feel like where I'm content, but like not full feeling,
Yeah.
right? Because then you've eaten like too much. I I don't know if where I saw it the other day, does it make a difference if you eat your protein or your carbs or vegetables first? Because I had read somewhere that eating your protein first can help with balancing insulin and things.
I
But
mean,
I'm like, does it
yeah.
really matter what order it's going in? You know what I mean? Like,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
as long as it's in that same sitting of time frame,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if I would. Is there that much difference consuming carbs? Would you think, okay, how fast is that broken down? Obviously, you're eating all that at the same time. As long as you're getting the carb and protein in the same sitting, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah, so that's what they like say for, or what I've read about, like for eating snacks, even like if you're going to have an apple, you should have protein with it because it
Mhm.
helps it kind of neutralize the impact of on your insulin levels and things
Yep, 100%.
and
Yeah, no,
whatnot.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, what it does is it doesn't allow your insulin to spike way up, so it keeps it more stable. Even though it may raise some, which is fine, it just doesn't push
right.
it way up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a fascinating thing. And like, if you look at like different comparisons of things that you can eat and like something more healthy and like how much less calories it is, but yet
Yeah.
it's so much more food, right? Um, it's it's really an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean 100%. I know that you can go find some of this, which I probably should have brought it in, and I didn't. It's pictures where it was like, hey, which one's more calories, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen some of those components, but
Hmm.
they've done that, and showed you structures where just based upon the density, the quality of the food, there's a big difference in calories.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're taking a bowl of ice cream versus a bowl of Greek yogurt with
Yeah,
berries, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's probably half the calories and it's probably going to keep you fuller longer, right?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, well, thanks for the info.
yep. Any other questions? Yeah, so I mean, I mean the biggest takeaways is just there's small adjustments you guys can do as long as you can do it consistently, it will add up. And I will tell you, if you can really minimize some of the simple sugars and carbs, and it takes 7 to 10 days, 7 to 14 days, your body will adjust and won't crave them as much because it really your fuel. The reason we get in so much trouble with some of the processed foods and some of the simple sugars, it's like a dopamine hit. So it's like a cycle. It really just spikes your insulin. You want to come back and hit it again because it was so good. And the better you are of minimizing that, your body will respond to that. Basically, it's like getting it out of the system, and you won't crave it. But it does take a little bit of discipline to get through that process. And then when you do introduce it back in, you're like, whoa, it's almost like an overload because you may not be accustomed. So we're not accustomed to taking a ton of sugar. And like we had Easter, we had with some candies. I ate one, and I was like, holy smokes! And it's been a while since I've had that much sugar just at one sitting. Not saying I haven't had it. It was just like an overload for me. And I was like, I don't think it even tastes good. But the better you are at minimizing that and reducing it for an extended period of time, the more control it'll give you, specifically in response and cravings.
I just had one quick question.
Sure.
So, like, when going out to dinner, um, like you were saying that the salads, like at a restaurant, are going to be like extra high due to like all the extras. What would you
Mhm.
look for at a restaurant then to
I
try
mean,
to, because it's not
yeah,
like they say this is 500 calories
well,
or this is how much protein is in
yeah.
there.
Some of them, I mean, some you have to look sometimes. Some of them will have, and that's fantastic when they put the breakdown, but not all of them have that.
Yeah.
Um, so I would always think about, hey, where am I getting my protein source from? So if I was going to do a salad, I would say, okay, does it have steak, chicken? What does it look like there
Okay.
first? And
Hmm.
if you can get them to put the salad dressing on the side, that helps a little bit. That way it gives you more control. I mean, those are just small concepts.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, think about the protein. As long as you're getting that protein source in, then if they allow you to pull out some of the sauces and put it on the side, that's always going to give you more control.
Okay.
Because that's where we really get in trouble. We've even gone to restaurants where um, they made their own salad dressing, or but I could taste the sugar in it, right? So however they made the salad dressing, I was like, holy smokes, this tastes like syrup. Because they obviously they want it to taste good, but if your palate is more bland and you've pulled some of these components out, you will be able to tell when you go to different places like what's kind of what they put in in the sauces and foods.
Okay. That's
Yeah, no,
helpful. Thank you.
yeah. Well, awesome. Well, hopefully this is helpful. Again, uh, what I do is I will shoot out here in another couple weeks a questionnaire to you guys and see if there's other specific topics. Sometimes what will happen with this is we'll repeat in some format some of the topics. No worries. I will try to change some of the content, or if we want to get a little bit deeper into a subject, we can from a science standpoint. Many times, what I try to do is keep it more relevant to what you guys need and try to simplify the process as much as possible because there's so much information. A lot of the marketing ploy and misconceptions are out there that confuses us as consumers. And what I want to do is try to keep it simple for you guys because it doesn't have to be complicated. Many times it's marketing that causes the confusion, and that's purposeful, obviously for specific reasons. So if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and wrap it up and I appreciate you guys jumping on. If you guys do have other specific questions, never hesitate and obviously um, Aaron will take care of you, or never hesitate to reach out if there's other specific topics you guys want to address. Well, awesome. Well, have a great day and enjoy the rest of the week. I'll see you guys next week.